up in the Ozarks of southern Missouri, I spent most of my time outside. Most of that time was spent at my grandparents' cattle farm. The farm had all the kinds of things that you would want. Land, four-wheelers to explore it on, ponds that were full of fish that were perfect for any lazy afternoon activities. There was cattle and hunting dogs and all the bugs that you could ever want to find. We'd spend a lot of our time exploring and playing outside. And the farm was this cheat code for hide and go seek. If you wanted to hide, the search team would never be able to find you. There was also one place in the farm, though, that we never hid, and it was an ancient root cellar that the earliest family members of ours used to store their food in. Why? Because that place was dark. There's too many stories of monsters hiding under the bed for little old me to have gone wandering into that root cellar. For hide and go seek, that root cellar was off limits. We're now in the season known as Easter, and continuing to ruminate on the story of Easter, there's a line from our reading a few weeks ago that stuck with me. It's like a song that just gets stuck in your head. So the text is John 20, verses 1 and 2, and it says, "Early in the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed." And it's that line. Did you catch it? It says, while it was still dark. While it was still dark. Every single Easter begins in the dark. When Mary runs into the tomb, it's early on a Sunday morning. And can't you imagine how Mary must have been feeling that morning? Your God, your Lord, your friend has just been killed. So what was she looking for? Maybe to have one less look at her dead friend? Maybe to cope with some of the grief that was setting in. The terror, the rush, the confusion, the guilt when the body isn't there where it's supposed to be. In some way, this last year of COVID has felt like we've all been in the dark. We've been struggling, and often we've been struggling alone. And we've all lost a lot. Maybe more than ever, I can empathize with those feelings of loss and grief that have happened over the last year. The same feelings that Mary and the disciples must have been feeling when they went to look for Jesus and he wasn't where he was supposed to be. In the midst of all this felt darkness in the last year, these 5 words from a short verse in the Easter story keep playing over and over in my head. While it was still dark. And last year, I spoke to you all about my depression that was partially brought on by family events, and it was heightened by the lack of sunlight in the season. And this type of depression is aptly called SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. One of the nasty little tricks of seasonal affective disorder is that the things that you need to be outside, to be in the sun, to be around others, are the things that you're hiding from. This disorder affects all the aspects in your life. You just don't experience this mentally, but you experience it socially and emotionally and physically and maybe even spiritually as well. For some of us, this physical darkness causes us to shut ourselves in. And yet it didn't for Mary. So what can we learn from her as she went and looked for Jesus while it was still dark? Maybe you describe your faith, your relationships, your own mental health as struggling at best during these 15 months. Add in social isolation alongside our collective losses and the physical darkness of winter, and no wonder we can maybe empathize with Mary the morning that she went looking for Jesus and her feelings of loss and loneliness and fear. And yet, they still went out looking. The actions of Mary in John 20 should be an encouragement for us, both communally and personally in our relationships with Christ. So let's first talk communally. I was able to see a friend last week that I haven't seen since last March, and it felt so good to be with him. And maybe you've had the same experience that I had. Maybe you've come back to church lately, or you finally got to see your long-lost cousin, or your friends from work came over for a backyard barbecue. Maybe I'm being hopeful at best and naive at worst. But it feels like we're maybe finally, slowly transitioning from this historic last year into a new space. With the rates of vaccines increasing and this normal life almost seems to be at arm's reach. This week, my wife Allie and I tried to mark some of the things through COVID that we've lived with since the pandemic began. So we listed murder hornets. Apparently 1 million or 1 billion cicadas are about to hatch from the ground. I don't know if you can tell from the first two things that Allie really hates bugs. We also talked about how much we hate Zoom and we're over it. We lived through Tiger King and the expansion of both of our waistlines and how comfortable PJs are, especially on Sunday mornings. There's also a UFO that the government just casually told us was real and we didn't bat an eye. But more seriously, we've celebrated in the last 15 months some long tenures of really great ministers as this church. We've lost some amazing members of this church as well, who are dear friends to us, and some of their funerals that we weren't able to be at. As a country, we've lost 500,000 Americans and well over 3 million people around the world from COVID. We've also lived through an election, acts of violence and protests, and we could go on, but it's clear that we've lost a lot and we've survived a lot this year.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name still, call the sea to still, the raging me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, oh, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 'cause your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome.
I'm here with Beth and Garrett, who've started a brand new program here in Huntsville, the HATCH Hatch program, which teaches and employs young adults in the industry, in the hospitality industry. So Beth, how did this program come about?
So we've had this idea, it's been about 18 months or so in the making. I ended up here at Huntsville Country Club trying to manage a restaurant, trying to bring in good staff, and it just get increasingly more difficult to bring good staff in. And so at the same time, the people who were coming in to try to find jobs didn't have the skills necessary, didn't have the life skills that they needed to be able to hold a job even when they got here. In this town, our unemployment's so low, getting a job is very easy, keeping a job is very difficult. So we just started trying to figure out how to fix both sides of that equation, and we didn't know really what that looked like. We talked with RCP companies. They were fully on board. They said, we're trying to bring businesses to this town. We're trying to bring restaurants to this town, hotels to this town, and they all ask, what does your workforce look like? And nobody has an answer because it's just so difficult. So we started doing some research to figure it out, and we figured out that other people have also recognized that this is a very difficult problem to solve. And so we started visiting places in New Orleans. We've been down there a couple of times to visit. They've got a 26-year track record of having great success with a program exactly like what we're trying to do. So we just decided it was time. The knowledge is out there, the care is out there, and we just need to bring it to Huntsville and get it started.
And this is perfect timing, coming out of COVID, because the Tennessee Valley, we love to eat out, and we love the hospitality industry.
Sure.
So Garrett, you're not only training these people, but you're paying them to be trained.
Yeah, so that's one of the really important parts of the program. We're going to be paying them $1,250 over this 8-week program. It's key. The money is actually going to be deposited into their checking accounts that they set up with our local banking partner, and that's going to be a no-fee checking account. That's really going to help them start their job on the right footing once they leave the program. So, like I was saying, it's an 8-week program, and that's one of the financial literacy is a key part of everything that we're trying to do.
And two, you want these people to be employed, of course, in the hospitality industry, but you expect a lot of them. I mean, you don't want them to just be, come in at an entry-level job.
Yeah.
You expect them to be leaders in this industry in the future.
For sure, leaders in this industry, and also leaders among their community and their families, right? We know that the change that can happen from this holistic approach and empowerment through these life skills being the number one thing that we focus on, and hospitality being the second, but the life skills will set them up in any career path they choose to go forward over their next 40 plus years in their working life, to venture and really make an impact in any career field with these strong life skills and that we're going to give them. And
how does someone sign up for this?
So right now we're finalizing what the application really looks like, but there's an early interest form on our website, hatchhsv.com. Go under the program tab and you can fill out that, and we'll be sure to get them the application once it's finalized here in the coming weeks for the first program to start this summer.
Okay, and have you had a good response so far?
So far so good. We've been launched on Monday, and it's just the response has been great. And so I do want to add also on the website, because none of this stuff comes for free, we've got the $1,250 stipend. We've got teachers that we need to pay and a curriculum to develop. So there's also a place on the website, hatchhsv.com, where you can donate to this worthy cause. We are a 501c3, so we'd be happy to talk with anyone who wants to donate in any kind of way.
Okay, and you guys, you're going to follow these people through. It's not just train, good luck.
Yeah.
You're going to stay with them.
That's key. So it's not over at 8 weeks. We're going to have graduate alumni services, so they could come back for mental health counseling with our trained staff that they had the pleasure of working with over the 8 weeks. If down a year later, 2 years, 10 years later down the road, they need someone to talk to, our doors will always be open. If they need a computer to get on and fill out a resume, our doors will always be open in so many ways. So we are going to be we'll have staff designated to helping the alumni once that's built up, to help them kind of succeed through any challenges that might come after the program, after those 8 weeks are over.
Okay, well, best of luck to you.
Well, thank you so much. And it's really important, too, for the restaurants to know, because we're forming restaurant partnerships also starting this past Monday. We've had a ton of interest from restaurants, which is great. And those restaurants need to know that we'll be with those students there when they graduate with us. They still have our cocoon of help around them. So if they don't make it to work on time or those kinds of things, we are helping get that done, and the employer's not on their own. So that's another important aspect to the follow-on care.
Okay, and the website, hatchhsd.com.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When all seemed lost to Mary, she went to the tomb of Jesus. The only thing that mattered to her in the midst of loss was to go looking for Jesus. As we move into this new normal, maybe it's an opportunity for us to put those things which are priorities for us back to the top of our list. What are you going to put back on your schedule? What are you going to give your time and your resources and your energies to? Although I grew up in the Ozarks, my wife Allie is from Oregon. And so when we visit, my sole request for her is that we go to the beach, because there's not a lot of ocean water near Missouri. In the areas that we go to, the sand often houses these little rocks that are called agates. And you've got to dig pretty deep and sift through the sand to be able to find them. And when you bring your tiny shovel up to the surface, the big agates rise to the top. And so when we sift through our priorities as we come back into life, what are these big rocks that are going to rise to the surface of our priorities? What do we value most? Is it our relationship with Christ? Is that one of these shiny agates? Or is it just another thing in the list of things that isn't big enough to be sifted? As we come into a new normal this year, we all have decisions to make about what's most important to us, what we're going to reinvest ourselves into, and what matters most. In the height of you trying to figure out what is most important, can we learn something from this story of Mary, this text, to be like Mary and seek Jesus above all else? Mary's actions ask us what our communal and family priorities are, but she also gives us an example to follow in our own personal faith journeys. I had a conversation just this week with a friend of mine, and in the year of the pandemic, they and their spouse divorced, and their spiritual life fell apart in the process. And juggling all the difficulties, complexities, and the pain of separation, the relationship that they said that they took for granted with Jesus seemed to be falling apart as well. Maybe there's some in this room, or some that are watching, like my friend, who have lost a lot this year. And you feel like you're just trying to pick up the pieces. A faith that you took for granted that was once a garden of life has seemingly become a graveyard. Some long-held spiritual practices that had been a well for you now are dry. And questions and doubts that you've never had are now becoming commonplace and overwhelming. Maybe you deeply and personal know this spiritual darkness at this season. You may be in the same spot in your faith journey this year as my friends, and all the time and the energy that you've justifiably put towards maintaining relationships and your own mental health has just sucked you dry. Maybe the year away from your church community has left you feeling spiritually dry as well. You need someone to come looking for you in the dark. Mary gives us the invitation to go. When everything around us feels like we're stuck in a darkness, when all hope is lost, when the normal way of life has come and gone, she went out looking for Jesus. Like I said, I grew up in the Ozarks, and you always knew to come back inside for dinner when the sun was going down. Sometimes, though, we'd be out for so long that one of my brothers would have to come looking for the rest of us. It was getting dark, and we needed to come back in. Fred Craddock, the famous preacher, told a story of him playing hide and seek as a kid. And he said, I was so good. In fact, I was too good at hide and seek. And after a while, I would stick a toe or an arm out of my hiding place because I wanted to be found, just like we all want to be found. It's been a dark year for most of us, both collectively and individually. Maybe it's time that we went looking again for Jesus. Mary went poking around in the dark when all hope seemed lost, and she ended up being the first to find Jesus. The Easter text shows us today that we don't need to start looking for him in the graveyards of our past, but to start looking for him in the gardens of our futures. And here's the key. This is the most important part of the story. That Jesus isn't dead, but he wants to be found. And maybe he's sticking a toe or an arm out, just like Fred was, waiting for us to come looking for him when all hope seems lost. So Jesus isn't hiding. He's waiting for you to come looking.
I come with no defense. Can't prove my innocence. My only hope remains grace upon grace. Can't pay for what I've done. My sin I can't outrun. But your mercy made a way with grace upon grace. So like an ocean wave crashing over me, come and drown my shame in your mercy's deep. Oh, rid my soul of every guilty stain with grace upon grace. Oh, what a selfless trade. Your blood for my mistakes, my treason in exchange for grace upon grace. So like an ocean wave crashing over me, come and drown my shame in your mercy's deep. Oh, rid my soul of every guilty stain with grace upon grace. I surrender all with hands held high. I fall. I surrender all. Lord, my heart is yours. Take it and make it pure. Lord, my heart is yours. I surrender all. With hands held high, I fall. I surrender all. Lord, my heart is yours. Take it and make it pure. Lord, my heart is yours. Like an ocean wave crashing over me, come and drown my shame in your mercy's deep. Oh, rid my soul of every guilty stain with grace upon grace. So like an ocean waves crashing over me, come and drown my shame in your mercy's deep. Oh, rid my soul of every guilty stain with grace upon grace upon grace upon grace.
We're so glad you were with us today for TV Church. Check out tvchurch.info to find a number of resources that we hope you'll find helpful, such as ways to connect or previous episodes. In particular, if you are curious about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, or even if you just want a refresher, then we invite you to go to that page and download a booklet that Travis has written with you in mind.
This morning we heard from Scott Day about the importance of looking for Jesus. If you've been in a time of darkness, will you venture out and see what Jesus and community might have to offer you? Let's close our time together in prayer.
Holy God, we bow before you, awestruck by who you are. You are light and life, grace and mercy, just and right, and filled with love and power. Let our hearts draw near to you today. We seek you with all our hearts because we know that our desires are found and fulfilled in you.
We want to know you, Lord. You desire relationship, and so we say yes. Reveal yourself to us as we seek your face today. Without you, our becoming loses its fire and our doing loses its purpose. Guide our steps and our hearts ever closer to you. Help us to know your voice and to respond when you call. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.